I want to turn to one great friend of our show, Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett of the U.S. Virgin Islands. She served as the House manager for Donald Trump's second impeachment in 2021. She's formerly a member of the DOJ's Civil Rights Division. Great to see you in real life again. Doesn't happen all that often for us, so we're very excited.
You're looking good.
Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about what David was just talking about. There is, and you understand this as a former DOJ official and a former prosecutor, there is the technical breach. We know those documents weren't supposed to be there. So somehow, somewhere, a law has been broken unless somehow Donald Trump magically, mystically declassified those documents. And no one who understands that thinks that that's possible. And then there's the other dangers, the dangers of what do you do with that information? Where to go? Who saw it?
Right.
Are there names of people in it that could compromise their lives? Where are you on what you're worried about and what should be done about it?
Well, I'm worried on the precedent first of an individual, whether he be president or otherwise, who believes that he can flout the law by taking documents that belong to the government to their home and storing that wherever they feel like storing it. That in itself is very problematic and sets a precedent that must be checked. And then, of course, the other is the national security interest that you mentioned. As we heard from one of Donald Trump's lawyers, many people come into that office on a regular basis. She said it in Mar-a-Lago. So we have no clue how many people may have been able to see these documents, our national security interests, secrets, individuals, methodology might be compromised at this time. And I believe that's why DOJ is so concerned about the special master, is they have a duty right now to try and do threat assessment, to try and triage this, and having a special master might slow that down.
I want to play something because of your involvement in January 6th that Donald Trump said on a radio show about the insurrectionists who have been charged so far, because we have seen some and we've seen some long sentences. Let's listen to this together.
I will tell you, I will look very, very favorably about full pardons. If I decide to run and if I win, I will be looking very, very strongly about pardons. Full pardons.
Well deserved.
I think that's probably going to be the best, because even if they go for 2 months or 6 months, I mean, you know, they have sentences that go a lot longer than that.
Years and
but
years.
We'll be looking very, very seriously at full pardons, because we can't let that happen. What's happened here, and I mean full pardons with an apology to many, an apology.
Amen.
What do you think about that?
Well, I'm glad he said it, so that we know
so it's out there, yeah.
It's out there, right? What we have suspected he would do, his involvement, his belief that what happened on January 6th was appropriate, has now been said for all of us to see. And if he should run for president, I know and hope that every Democratic candidate will play that in loop, so that the American people understand that we have an individual who wants to be president, who agrees with insurrection and potential overthrow of the government if he doesn't get his way.
Let's talk about the GOP. Let's talk about the Soul of the Nation speech the other night. President Biden actually started his campaign when he ran for president on a fight for the soul of the nation, but it looked very different back then. It was Charlottesville and racism and things like that. What do you make of the speech, and does it move anybody? Does it move anybody who needed to be moved, who was thinking about voting Republican, who was thinking about maybe even Donald Trump for another term?
I think what it does do is solidifies for his base as well that this is an issue that he cares about. There has been concern, I believe, among Democratic base. Does this president want to play too much with the GOP? Is there a line that goes too far for the Democratic Party? And I believe that him giving that speech allows to set a clear line that this president doesn't agree with those ideas, while at the same time continuing to work with, as he calls it, mainstream Republicans. I call it the Republican Party. He calls them MAGA Republicans. I call that the MAGA Party.
Right.
So making a delineation between that so that each one of us, and as you said, those independents, have a place to go and understand that, yes, the president has said we are not part of them, but we are part of this American experiment. And I think that's going to be helpful.